Pointless.
Actually, I saw it. There was an interview on BBC of two epidemiologists, and it was awesome because their hair was, you could tell like there was stuff sticking up in different places. And it was worth it. Because I was watching them and you're like, wow, somehow I think they just like, oh my gosh, and got on the camera or something. But it was like, nobody kind of looked them over ahead of time. So.
My attitude toward mirrors is, why bother?
Exactly.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Faitheism Project Podcast, Season 2. My name is Alan Cass, and I have always been grateful to Hebrew School for making me the atheist that I am today.
And my name is Randy Lovejoy, and my faith has made me a rebel with a cause.
There you go. Well, I'm sitting with a rebel with a cause. I am honored.
I'm excited about today. So
yeah. We decided to talk about Christmas, to talk about the season. As I've kind of started to think about the subject, is there a war on Christmas, or wait a minute, has Christmas declared war on us?
Yeah, my idea was just more punny. It was like wrapping up the year, WRAPPING. Yeah. Did you get it, Alan? Like wrapping, like, yeah. Anyway, moving on. That's why you picked the titles. But anyway.
Now, it's funny. Christmas, I really do come at Christmas from a very different place than
right. I want to hear, like, how do you come at this season?
Now, it's funny. Christmas for me, growing up a Jewish kid in a Jewish suburb northwest of Baltimore in the 60s and early 70s, Christmas it's like someone else's party that you're not really invited to. There's no build up to Christmas per se, because it just doesn't register. It's a day that we happen to get off simply because the other guy is having a party. Mm-hmm. So it is a strangely hollow experience.
Wait, quick question. I got to ask this.
Yeah.
Would you have been happy and accepted an invitation to be a part of it, or would that not really have worked?
To be a part of what?
Like Christmas meal or Christmas morning, and hey, we've got a couple of gifts for you as well. Come on in. Or would that have been a good thing or an awkward thing, or what?
As we go through the episode, I will tell my Christmas story, because over the course of my life, yes, I was born. I grew up in a Jewish suburb where really nobody I knew celebrated Christmas. That was a day where we went out for Chinese food, and
so kind of like, in a real sense, the rest of the world did, but your immediate community, it wasn't happening there. But as you'd go out, other people were celebrating.
Everything was closed.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
You're. It's part of the larger culture, but it's not part of your culture. And the larger culture dictates.
Okay.
So you have to go along to get along. Now, the other part of this is that you have to understand, all right, it's the birthday of a character who's who is a problematic character relative to my tribe.
Because he's Jewish, or because?
No, because of what his followers.
Because of his followers, okay.
Because of what his followers. And hey, the fact that he was Jewish, that's cool with us. We have no problem with that whatsoever. Hey, but it's everything that followed. It's me off to the side. I blame Paul, but that's a whole other conversation that you and I will have ad nauseum. the strange thing is, when you grow up in an anti-Semitic world, the mascot for the anti-Semitism, the guy who your tribe is repeatedly told you're responsible for that person's death.
And you've experienced that, because that's definitely out there, but I'm just interested.
That I've had people tell me that I'm responsible
like directly, or was it more the stories of here's what's happened in the past?
Oh, I've had people tell me directly that I am responsible for that man's death.
Seriously? Okay. Wow.
I kid thee not.
Bizarre to me, but okay. I mean, I know it's out there. I'm not saying it's not out there. I just thought, I don't know. I just
More than once, shall we say?
Yeah. Well, and again, that's
multiple times, and
yeah.
Look, I'm sure the people doing it thought they were the best of their kind. You know what I'm saying?
That's probably why they did that.
they were since I wasn't going to accept the good news, I was due for the opposite. It's a strange holiday, and therefore a strange season for those of us who are not. There are all these other flavors to it that never go away. Now, all right. Now, that was what I grew up with. Then I left home and I went to college.
And this was in Baltimore. I mean, where you grew up with it. You're talking about.
I grew up as an outsider to Christmas in Baltimore.
Okay.
Now, my dad was a surgeon, and his secretary, Josie Zissimos was her name. Every Christmas, part of our tradition, one of our rituals, was that we would go and have exchange presents at Josie's house.
Okay.
Out in the non-Jewish.
So Josie was not Jewish.
Correct? Not Jewish.
Okay.
And they celebrated Christmas, and there was an exchange of gifts, and yeah, in answer to one of your early questions, did people welcome us? Well, yes, of course. But let me tell you, as you're sitting there on the couch surrounded by all the Christmas stuff, you've never felt so Jewish in your entire life.
Because we've got neighbors here that
there's a giant J on your forehead.
And why is that? Like, what was there anything particular about it, or was it just the whole atmosphere?
Because everything else is Christmas and you're not.
Okay.
And the reason that you're not is because you don't believe a word of it. And this stands between you, absolutely, because even as we're celebrating Christmas and these were religious people, so there's a manger there on the floor. It's cool. This is all part of the story, the mythology. As even as an outsider to it, you grow up with it, and you. We'll get to the next part. When you begin to ask questions about it, it just gets even more screwy. You're very clear about the fact that the people you're sitting with believe that this story being depicted on the floor of their living room literally took place.
And is that the problem? Or is it more the history of the relationship?
Oh, but that is where the problem starts.
Okay.
Oh, and then it, they've opened their house to someone who denies an important fact of their existence, that they have been saved by their belief in the Messiah. It absolutely, I'm telling you, it just does. It's weird. It's the weirdest sensation. It is to stand outside of someone else's mythology and to be judged because you haven't bought it. It's an odd experience.
So did you feel like the secretary and her family were judging you and your family for not believing in it? Was that part of the experience, or was it more just the clash of stories and you're knowing that, well, they believe this seriously and we don't, and so there's a
You know,
problem.
so much of this is unspoken. It's the clash of cultures,
Sure, sure.
and it's there's a lot that's unspoken. But you can feel the room. We're animals, and there's just a lot of mistrust. There are a lot of stories that were told that have been passed down that are ludicrous. But if you believe that, okay, at some point Jews killed Christian babies to make mosses, if that somehow is, or
Jews
any
killed
of
Christian babies. What?
you've never heard that?
No. Where do they get that from?
Well, it's part of the blood libel. This is all part of the blood libel. You see, you're a civilized person.
Apparently, I didn't know about that one. I mean, I knew, in the Bible, it's the Romans that did that, or the Roman half breed. And so it's not, I mean,
it's all part and parcel to, when villages of Jews were wiped out, during plague years, because they blamed the Jews for poisoning the well.
Sure, during Christendom, and yeah.
Hey, it's.
But that's the thing, though, is it's like, is there a way past that, or is it just better to, like, when I celebrate this Christmas, I just focus myself, don't invite any Jewish people to be a part of it, and we just do our thing, they do their thing, and we don't do anything together? Or I mean, that's part of where my question is coming from. And I think a lot of people listening, if they celebrate Christmas as a part of their ritual or as a part of their faith, either one or both,
I didn't mean to take this to a dark place so quickly.
I mean,
the dark place at all. I honestly, I didn't.
Because we have neighbors who, we're connected with them. We see them a lot. We're in a relationship with them. They brought over latkes for us, but as a part of their celebration. And one time when she was over with her daughter, she was reciting the prayers that they were doing as a part of it, that they do as a family. And so my thought was, okay, well then how do we kind of reciprocate, but not in a way that's powering up or in a way that's judgmental or whatever, but it is in a way that's saying, hey, we're in a celebration. We'd love to have you be a part of it if you want to be.
I don't know the answer to your question. It's okay. It's tricky. And again, when I think about some of the Christmas rituals from my youth, my dad and I actually loved to watch the midnight mass from the Vatican.
Oh, that's interesting.
Loved it. Really, just fascinated by the pomp and circumstance.
Sure.
Not in a gee whiz kind of a way, but in a really just from a watching from the dark corners of history.
Uh-huh.
It's like I said, it wasn't my intention to actually go there, but now that you've peeled the scab off this wound, Randy.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like this is the kind of conversation that I think people listening to this would want to hear, because it's like, what do you do? Because on the one hand, I don't want to say
this question. I didn't expect this question.
Because I mean, on one hand, I couldn't say, okay, I'm not going to celebrate anything because it would make Alan feel bad or make my neighbors feel bad. So you can't do that.
No.
So then do you invite people in, or does that make people feel bad, or what? And we don't have to come up with an answer, but I do think, what about this? I mean, would it be worth people having this if they have Jewish neighbors or non-Christmas celebrating neighbors? It might be worth having this conversation with them sometime casually and just get together and talk.
At the end of the day, I completely agree with you, because really, look, part of the fact that you and I suddenly had this conversation that we didn't expect to have, it's a really interesting question, because this is part of the problem that you and I are trying to solve in general. How do we break down these barriers that, hey, I was there taking for granted.
Yeah.
I was taking for granted the fact that this will always be the way that it is. There's no way to overcome,
right.
the chasm between us. Well, you're proving me wrong again. Damn you.
Well, and I think that's I mean, I remember being in a Christmas Eve service, and you were there too.
Well,
and
yes.
And I was so embarrassed when, as part of the service, the Pharisee came out, and it was for kids, right? So it was like what do you call it, with a white hat, black hat? What's that word for that kind of a deal where you've got it's melodramatic, and it's
But it was good cop, bad cop, and
good guy, so the Pharisee came out, and people with their kid were like, "Oh, boo," and I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh my gosh, I have someone here that's making me see these things in like a different way. This is super embarrassing."
He's on the Pharisee side, this guy.
Yeah, and my guess is most of the families weren't thinking, "This is a Jewish guy, let's boo him," but they were thinking of the role of the Pharisee, a particular Pharisee in the story, because there's actually, at least what the Bible says, is Jesus was actually buried by a Pharisee as well. So it was a Pharisee willing to do that. But it was an awkward situation, and it was one I just hadn't thought of before until you were there. And then suddenly, the whole service was distressing to me, because I was just thinking, oh my gosh, with Alan here, now I'm seeing it in a different light, that it's like, there's got to be a way to celebrate this that's not so awkward, But
all right, we're leaping about in this story. All right, in a strange way, I feel like I should explain what the hell it was. What was I doing at a Christmas?
Well, with friends, right? I mean, there were a lot of friends there.
But we have a mutual friend, Janet, and ever since her husband and the father of the family, Chris, died, we all as a community went, because this is the church where Chris's funeral service was, and every Christmas, it's just to be supportive of the family.
Yeah,
they would go every Christmas Eve. So we began to go as the extended family with Janet and
that's awesome. Yeah,
and so that it just became a tradition for the Silver Lake community around them we went on Christmas Eve, and I would put my beliefs in my pocket, and it was a nice welcoming service. It's lovely. I would crack the Bible and I would begin to read all the good parts, because that's my idea of, if you're gonna make me sit here, I'm gonna go and read stuff that I really like to read, because there are parts of it that just fascinate me. I'm reading through Jeremiah. I think is great fun.
Oh yeah,
great fun. The Song of Solomon sometimes, when let's get a little intimate.
Oh man, I mean, there's some good stuff in there. Just don't ever, for anybody wanting to quote the Bible to a loved one on Valentine's Day, Song of Solomon's good, but don't do the part where it says your nose is like the Tower of Siloam. That will not work anymore. I mean, that was probably okay in that day and age, but don't do it. So other parts of it, but not that. I just, as a pastor, I had to say that.
Some very good advice, people. Write it down.
That's right. Do not use that one.
So, anyway, we used to go there. I ironically, they stopped going to that church because the church, having to do with the daughter is transitioning, and they would not let her change her Bible from what she was.
The church didn't handle it well.
Yeah, they did not handle it well at all, and so they stopped going to the church.
Yeah, I was very sad about that. Yeah.
So life is so ironic.
Well, it is, but what I like, your explanation there, gets us toward one of the things I wanted to just kind of highlight, which because you were going there as a support of a friend,
sure,
and were willing to engage in that particular celebration, forced to support that friend, and
it was about friends. It wasn't about Christmas,
right? And I think, to me, that's part of. I think we struggle as a people right now with celebrations, just in general, because even Thanksgiving. I mean, Thanksgiving is been, is a struggle for some people now. It's not like, hey, it's Thanksgiving, let's get together, have some turkey, be a family. It's more like, well, wait a minute, do you realize historically what's occurred and that this is oppressive and all? So to the point that you're kind of like, well, okay, if we celebrate, will all the family be there? And if we're all there together, are we complicit in some kind of oppressive whatever? And what do we do? And, when I say have a happy Thanksgiving, is that code for I'm a rebel and in your face and I support Trump or what? And then the same is true with Christmas, that it's become, I remember when Trump became president and intentionally said Merry Christmas, it was like this huge rebel move. And it was like, how weird that just the way we've gotten, it's like, don't say that, don't celebrate that. And this totally directly relates to your experience growing up, but it's like, is celebrating Christmas a good thing, or is it a bad thing, or am I complicit in something, or is it better not to celebrate, or what? And it's just, I think we have a really hard time celebrating right now.
Let me leap my story forward because it kind of answers the question. Okay, so the house that I grew up in is one thing. The woman I ended up marrying is actually half Jewish, half Church of England. She's British. My wife is British, and her father was not in any way a practicing Jew. He was, for all intents and purposes, not really Jewish. My wife didn't grow up with any Jewish traditions whatsoever, so she was more Church of England than anything else. And her family celebrated Christmas. And so from the moment that I've been involved with Hell, certainly since we got married and we're living together, these 35 or so years, we have always celebrated Christmas. And so, yes, Christmas is in my house. And so.
But it's a family celebration. It's a celebration of family, or of the end of the year, or of what? I mean,
it's from my point of view, it's a whole set of rituals that have nothing to do with me.
Okay. Interesting.
And really and truly, I welcome them. I love being part of them, but I'm not an active part of them.
Okay.
When we go and get the tree, I might go with, but I'm not the one who chooses the tree. That's Helen's choice, or it's Tristan's or Bianca's choice, because I honestly don't care.
Okay.
When we bring the tree home, I don't decorate it.
Okay.
I have no interest in that. I have no history of that, and literally no interest. It's utterly foreign to me. I get that it's there, and I welcome it. It's lovely.
You're choosing not to participate at a particular level.
It's not my thing. I would be faking it. I would feel like it would be the same. Hey, when I go to if I go to a Jewish ceremony, I do not put a yarmulke on, and if everyone else is putting towels on, I would not put towels on, because that symbolism is important to them.
So this is a similar deal with your sense with Christmas,
ritual.
It's like, well, this is a character. This is something that people believe that I don't believe that happened. And in a similar way with these Jewish things, it's look, I don't believe this happened, so therefore it would be hypocritical of me to participate. Is that?
Well, yeah, because the symbols are important to some people.
Right.
I'm not doing it just to be an asshole. I'm honestly, I'm.
You feel like you devalue the symbols
if I were to do it.
Okay.
It's because you take this seriously. I don't. If I do it, I'm just going along to get along.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm in my mind, I'm disrespecting you. I'm being less disrespectful to stand back and go, this is your thing. Go do. Really, I don't have to do it to validate it for you. Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Do I? I mean, it should not. Nothing should ever be that way. I shouldn't have to believe anything for you to believe something is true.
Sure.
It shouldn't be that way. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works. Unfortunately, the world works the opposite. Some people who insist that they believe, but they can't really believe unless you believe with them.
Yeah.
Voila, the problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, So in a way, Christmas has conquered me to a degree. I buy Christmas presents. As soon as as soon as Thanksgiving rolls around, I get the agita in my gut that, oh, have I bought Christmas presents for people?
Right,
Have I done
right,
that?
right.
And Christmas is a day on my calendar that that is a planned day. That and all the protocol, all the ritual. This is this is Helen's. This is my wife's. This is her. This is stuff that she's done her whole life. And so part of if I want to have a relationship is I facilitate, but it's also understood that I'm not leading on it. I don't, and that would be odd if I did. I think she would look at me like I was making fun of her. And so I've made my peace with it.
Okay.
I guess is my larger message. I've made my own personal peace with Christmas, which is kind of how I'm answering your question. What could anyone do?
It sounds like there's not a lot. It sounds like, invite if you want to, and I'll make a decision whether I want to go there or not. And that's fine.
As with everything else in our culture, if one does anything with an open heart and an open mind, it doesn't matter. Yes, then you could welcome people into your house, and it's a fantastic thing. It's a cross-cultural experience.
Right.
But perversely in my past, when it happened, while it was intended to be a cross-cultural experience, it just didn't play that way. It was intended for a nice thing, and it was nice, but there was an undercurrent of tension. Hey, I was just my God, this is in the 60s, so I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm just recording what I felt in that room.
Yeah.
And
right.
I don't know anything.
You felt a division rather than a welcoming in and, hey, let's celebrate life together or something. It was more like, this is highlighting the division that there is and the history that there is, that kind of thing. That was sort of the effect of it. Is that right?
Anti-Semitism, it leaves marks.
Yeah,
and that's
understandable. Yeah.
One would be silly to assume that everyone was welcoming.
Sure.
Considering history, one would be a little naive.
Yeah.
So, one always, one looks for the signs. Yeah, it's true. You walk into the room and there's another one. It's like institutional racism, which is a thing. We embed these things in our culture because we do them for so long that we normalize them and then we institutionalize them, and we have built these things to some degree unintentionally, to some degree intentionally, into our systems. But these things are breaking down, and at the end of the day, the more the merrier culturally. But I say that as an outsider.
That's my hope, because that's the thing is and it probably relates to institutional racism as well. It's the thing is that it's very hard if you're a part of that institution to figure out to feel confident about what you can or cannot do. It becomes completely undefined, and it's very difficult to know what the impression is other people are having. But then the other thing is, it's very hard to know, how can I be who I am authentically at the same time as the other person being authentically who they are, without implying or reinforcing some of these other things. And to me, that's
yes. This is the key. It is, and it's
the challenge.
It is a huge ask, because in essence, someone who did not directly do the thing, but is living with the benefits of the thing, is looking at someone who is still living with, with the demerits that were never earned in the first place. And so it's an unequal conversation. It's a conversation that none of us have ever had before.
Right. And
on top of it all, it's how do we have this conversation? There's no book to go to. Well, the last time
right.
A civilization came to terms with its own racism and its own diversity at the same time. Here's what they did. It's never happened before.
Well, that's the thing is that, and I think that's where history is an important part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because
context and perspective,
because it's and that history is just not clean. What people look for, I think, is this is wrong, this is right. I mean, one of the reasons that Lord of the Rings is so great is all you have to do is look, and you can tell who's bad and who's good, because the bad people look bad and the good people look good, broadly speaking. So it's like, but life's not like that. And in life's a whole bunch of different, positives and negatives and all that kind of stuff. So you can point out negatives and they do need to be seen. But within that, there are probably also positives that don't get blotted out because of the negatives, because that's the human condition. We're all in the middle of, we do some things right, we do some things horribly. And yet, if we say that the things that are done horribly really just erase the stuff that's been done right, then we're not going to get anywhere, because we're not doing things 100% right either. So, I mean, bringing that back into Christmas, it's like, the history of Christianity and Judaism, particularly in, the time of Christendom in Europe, because I think it'd be really fascinating to have like an African Christian in on the conversation, because they'd be like, well, yeah, tough for you guys, but that's not, I'm not in that story. And then
different history entirely.
Right. Although, Africa is now one of the places that Christianity is growing rapidly. So the intriguing thing is, okay, well, how does that affect the whole dynamic? Because, it was a little bit easier in some ways in the way we critique things to think of it as, okay, Christmas is white Europeans, and then they're the other people, and it's like, well, but today, if you wanted the poster child for Christianity, just given all of the Christians in the world, it's a non-white Pentecostal. That is what Christianity is. It's just we Westerners haven't got our head around it, because all of our stereotypes are still a white
European,
upper class European person sitting stoically in a pew, and it's like, that's just not it anymore. That's the minority. So, but that's, there's this great book called, I've mentioned it before, Secular Age by Charles Taylor, where he tries to look at how did we move so rapidly, historically speaking, from the idea of God being an assumption everybody had almost, to the idea of God being a challenge for everybody almost within Western culture. Yeah. And how did we do that? But one part of what he talks about is the important role of festivals and celebrations. And, and for a while with church support in Europe, that was a time where everybody could just let loose. It was like, all right, the rest of the year we're serious. The rest of the year we're upright. But like Mardi Gras is an example that's still around. It's like, but we're going to have times where we just party, and to me, we don't really have that time anymore, because we're so serious about everything all the time. And every problem we have is the whole world is going to end tomorrow unless we solve it. How could we possibly take time just to celebrate? And let me just from a Christian point of view within the church, The fascinating thing to me growing up was the attacks on the Christian celebration within the church. Now, I don't know if you're aware of some of these, but one was this belief that it was on December 25th. That was a winter solstice celebration of pagans, so we shouldn't be celebrating Christmas, right? And that's still, for example, a Jehovah's Witness take is they don't celebrate Christmas because it's a pagan thing, right? So part of it was there's this attack, like, why is it on the 25th? That was some pagan celebration. It was just pasted over by people, blah, blah. Now, let me mention, just for people interested in this, that's the, there's a history of religions hypothesis, which is and another one is that there was a Roman mystery religion called Mithraism, which actually was inspired by Iranian Zoroastrianism, where they had a particular celebration of the sun on the 25th of December. So some people say that was it. Others say just broadly the more winter solstice thing. And still other people have a calculation hypothesis, whereas the tradition was that Jesus was actually, that Mary became pregnant on March 25th. And so they just calculated backwards 9 months from there. And that's why it's on the 25th. So all that to say that within Christianity, there was this, hey, this was just a pagan thing that was pasted over. We don't do that. But then we really don't know why it ended up on the 25th, around 400. It didn't happen prior to about 400 AD, as far as we know.
I have a look through the first formal celebration. This is from something that Newsweek did a couple of years ago. The first formal celebration of December 25th as Jesus' birthday was by the Roman Christians in 336 AD, while Pope Julius I officially declared the day a nativity celebration around the year 350. In largely Christian nations, the holiday continued without much dispute until the rise of the Puritans in
1700s. They shut it down in England.
Yeah, they did.
And so, which again, the odd thing of the time we're in, and I'd love to talk more about this sometime, is I think we have new Puritans. It's just that the Puritans are non-religious and they believe in things like you should never celebrate Thanksgiving because there's some negative things in the story. And to me, that's puritanical. It's just defined differently. The Puritans had at least 50 years or so of shutting down Christmas in England because there was too much partying going on. So we don't want this thing. And it actually took like a long time for them to get it going again. And Charles Dickens was a big
talk about a war on Christmas.
Yeah, right. And Charles Dickens, though, was a big part of getting it rolling again. So just a couple other things that Christians have struggled with in certain parts of Christianity. One was that they said that it was that the Christmas tree was a pagan thing. And it has nothing to do with it. Why are we doing a Christmas tree? But what was fascinating to me is that was actually, as far as I can tell, my research says it was introduced by the wife of King George III in the 19th century. It's way more recent than what I had heard. And it wasn't necessarily like some pagan thing. It was related to German, and that, because she was German before she got married. Then Queen Victoria, who married a German guy, then brought it into to Britain. And then I think in the 1820s, Washington Irving wrote some stories that included a Christmas tree, and that got it going in the US. So, but the other part of it to me is one of the weird things about a lot of Christians is that you've got to somehow have this pure ritual that is unconnected to any other ritual for it to be okay for Christians to engage in. And there's a real difference there because it's connect, there's proselytism, right? Where you're really trying to take people from one total culture and put them in another culture, basically. And it's religious, but from one culture to another. That's what that reflects to me. But what I would call the good Christianity, like effective in terms of can be culturally good, is more about it comes into a culture and then that culture turns its rituals and practices toward this faith in Christ, which means, oh, we have a winter solstice celebration. Now we're becoming more Christian. So let's celebrate it as a Christian celebration rather than as one that celebrates Roman gods. That's all it is. So to me, that's actually the way it's supposed to work with Christianity, because it's one guy put it that Christ makes his home in a different culture, rather than me kind of as a Western Christian going to somebody who's a non-Western Christian and saying, here's how you have to be a Christian. It's more like, hey, here's the story. If you guys are into this, then integrate it into your culture, however you want to do it. So all of that to say that the final one, I'll end with this, is there were some Christians that are like, hey, people spend too much money, it's too commercial, we shouldn't have Christmas like that. Think of all the poor people. And so instead of buying gifts, they go get their $5 to $7 lattes and talk about how terrible it is that people are spending money when there's so many poor people in the world. And you're like, well, for a $5 latte, you could actually give people in other countries, a meal for multiple meals. So it's this weird deal to me that is a bit hypocritical. And it comes back to, look, let people celebrate. We do that as humans. We need to have some celebrations. And so they're giving gifts to each other. How the heck is that a bad thing that people are giving gifts to other people? What is the problem? Is there a budget that they have to follow that you're going to tell them how much they can spend to do a gift with somebody else? I mean, what? So it's just like, get off of your
really cruel secret Santa.
Yeah. And actually, just a quick, I know it was in 1850, Harriet Beecher Stowe started writing about the commercialism of Christmas. I didn't realize that. That was kind of a new, interesting little factoid.
In what year did Harriet Beecher Stowe? It was already in what year?
1850.
1850. Already, the commercialization of Christmas was already.
So that's been around for a while. But it's just, the thing to me is, I guess, so just two things out of that little monologue there. One is lighten up. And for those of us within Christianity, just lighten up and enjoy the celebration. And let's remember, refocus on what we're supposed to be about. Number one. Number two is, guess what? As Christians, we can shape and mold the celebration in a way that works in our culture. That is okay. So, given the way our conversation began, we've obviously got some work to do. Not to just erase Christmas and say, okay, I'm not going to celebrate it anymore because it bothers some other people, but instead to say, is there a better way that we can celebrate Christmas that...
What are you celebrating at Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, are you asking me directly, or are you asking as a rhetorical?
What in theory? What's the log line in 5 words? What are you celebrating at Christmas?
The celebration of Christmas is that a whole new world is possible.
All right, so hope.
That's how I put it. That because of what I'm celebrating in Christ, we can actually live in a totally different way. Not to say that we've done a great job of that, but there's one phrase from him. The hopes and fears of all the years were something in thee tonight. The hopes and fears of all the years were, I can't remember the word, and I'm gonna kick myself for that. That's something I've been singing since I was a little kid. But anyway,
we won't tell anyone about your senior moment.
Yeah, thank you. But it's the idea that all that the world has been struggling with, that there is actually hope and a way forward. That is what.
But you keep coming to the word hope.
Yep, totally.
Hope is the word that my ear keeps picking up that keeps dropping. All right, hope. So, all right, as a way to answer the question and to bring this around.
Yep.
I'm developing a thesis here.
Awesome. Let's hear it.
What the history of Christmas is the history of a fluid concept.
Yep.
And as you just pointed out, you Christians you can remake it what you will. That would not violate anything. Really, 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 really. It's
No, no.
yeah. It
Because for the first 300 years of Christianity, Christians did not celebrate Christmas. That doesn't mean we don't celebrate it. What it means is we are free to be creative and innovative in figuring out how we want to celebrate and the birth of Christ. Yeah, that's what we're
all right.
and we get freedom to do that.
All right. As a professional writer, and I don't know why we call it writing. We should just cut to the chase and call it rewriting, because that's
Call it
really
what?
call it rewriting.
Yeah, okay, right.
Because really, that's what all good writing ultimately is. It's a lot of rewriting. So we should just call it rewriting. Yeah, do the writing part, now get to the rewriting, because that's when the real work happens. So
Yeah.
I understand what it is to live in rewrites. The possibility to get it right the next draft, that's an important. No draft is final.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we make the movie, but these days we can fix it even after the movie's distributed. We can do another version. And people, even songs aren't finished. People do different versions of songs.
And like some versions work at certain contexts and times, but then later it's like, well, that's not telling the same story now. Now we need to change it so that we're, yeah.
Another example where the guys who wrote and stood by the Constitution, they wrote the words "all men are created equal," but they didn't really mean it. They didn't mean all men. They only meant white Christian landowning men, but they did mean only
a few
men.
of them did, but yeah.
I mean, Madison did. There were a few of them who, Madison insisted that on our Great Seal is "e pluribus unum."
Yeah.
Out of many one. So there were, Madison certainly understood where American greatness lay in its diversity, and so yes, there were those of them who understood. And in time, we have begun to rethink all men are created equal as all people.
Sure.
So we've taken these important documents, these really foundational things, and we've reimagined them because we're evolving. We're growing and growing up as a culture. We're maturing.
I hope so. That's I think we're trying to. I would say we're trying to, but I'm not convinced.
Oh, we're going through a very hard patch right now. We're going through a really difficult.
Right.
We need to get back on our meds. And I say that as someone who's on meds. Yeah, we need therapy. We need better meds. We need intense talking to.
Yeah.
We need to resolve a whole lot of issues that we're a little bit at war with ourselves, and we need to talk ourselves through it rather than shoot our way through it. It's that would be a dumb way to do this.
Or legislate our way through it, which is not, I mean, that's one of my problems, is that we constantly try to solve our issues through legislation, which doesn't solve the problem. It may get it so that you're more comfortable with the direction, but that doesn't solve the problem, because other people aren't going to go away. They're not going to disappear.
If legislation needs to level the playing field so that everyone has an equal chance, when it goes beyond leveling the playing field, okay. But at the end of the day, my point is, we made this country up. This is our invention. It's a human invention, and we can always change these things. We forget that sometimes, that we made this stuff up and we have it within us. You can't do it individually. We have to do it as a group, but to sell an argument, to make an argument, to change, when enough people say, yes, this must change, because we will it.
Yes. Although if we're talking about Christmas, no. I'm talking about just life in general. But so I think now with Christmas, you can take this and go, you know what?
Yes, for a long time it seemed to have meant that, but this is where this is exactly what you're talking about, Randy. This is a moment where people can say, you know what? We can redefine this thing for our time.
Right. Which in that case, because I mean, there are people that would say, well, we made this whole Christianity thing up so we can make it whatever we want it to be. I'm not one of those. What I would say is the way we celebrate this concept that there is something beyond human contentiousness and battles and fighting for power that broke into our reality and gave us other possibilities. That hope can be celebrated in creative and innovative ways and we're free to figure that out. And the other thing I would say is, it's not like just Christians need to get together in a back room and figure it out. It's more like, let's try to do it as a part of this culture. Like, what would it mean for this culture to celebrate? And there's a necessary, I think, exclusion in any celebration. It's like you have a birthday party, you don't invite everybody to your birthday party. I mean, you just don't. It's just, that's not how it works. Well, with Christianity, there are different ways that people can connect to the celebration of Christ. Some people a lot more than others. And that is just the way it is. I don't think you can set up a way to celebrate the birth of Christ that everybody's equally engaged and comfortable. But
no, it is,
But what would be intriguing to me would be a Christmas celebration which would both celebrate the positive things that Christianity has brought into the world and would also acknowledge and long for a better Christianity than the Christianity that has been in history in certain situations, something like that.
I think you're on to something, and I think actually, ironically, perversely, maybe, the answer to the question is this is a celebration of the birth of whom again?
Of
Yeshua ben Joseph, who now we now refer to as Jesus Christ. And Jesus, the most important message that he taught was do unto others. Fundamental message, do unto others. What if Christmas became a celebration of doing unto others?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think, for if you can do, and love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah. What if there's a way to do that so that even those that would not agree with the love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength might at the very least experience the love your neighbor as yourself that's meant to flow out of that. I don't know. I mean, to me,
I would even take it back to its Jewish, to do unto others Jewish origins as Tikkun Olam, which is it's everyone's, Jews' obligation, but yeah, I think everyone's obligation to make the world a better place just for having been in it. That's your job. Go. However you're going to do it, that's up to you. Yeah. Make the world a better place. Go do. If that was a celebration, if that's what Christmas celebrated, hey, and if frankly we cut the gift buying by about 99% and focused on making the world a better place for other people, Christmas would be a holiday that I think everyone would want to celebrate.
Yeah, and I hear you. I just think that at least for Christians, you're still a step away from celebrating Jesus. So you're kind of like feeling like, hey, let's just love everybody.
I'm taking Jesus's message, and I'm simply taking his message.
Right. But again, I agree with the direction you're going. It's just that I want to celebrate Jesus' birth as well, and celebrate Jesus' birth as the renewed hope that we could really, as a human race, do unto others as we would have others do unto us, which, by the way, means you need to have conversations like we're having, because I learned this early in my marriage. I gave my wife gifts that I thought were really cool first year. She did not think they were really cool.
Oh, what did you give her?
Therefore,
What did you give her, Randy?
oh, it was sad. It's like some scarf and like this wooden beetle pendant or something. And it was just like, early lesson. Okay, I need to find out what's going to speak to her of the love that I want to share, not just give her some stuff that I think's cool. That's not going to work. And I think in the same way, if we're really going to love one another, then we need to first figure out what is it that the other will realize, what is it I can do for the other that they will experience that love? You can't just say, well, I do it this way for me, so I'm going to do it for them. It's like, that may not mean anything, that. So the relationship and the conversation, exactly like we're talking about, is at the heart of being able to love another person as you would love yourself, All
right.
So.
Here's where my thesis has come around to.
Yes, go for it. What do you got?
Yeah, okay. And here's, maybe that maybe the point of Christmas, since really it is a Christian celebration.
Right.
And it
right.
It cannot be anything other than thus.
Right.
That it is therefore incumbent on you all, this is your celebration, to celebrate Jesus. And to make the world understand why you celebrate Jesus.
I like that. And it's not because we're mad at people that are taking the Christ out of Christmas or something. It's like, that is not the point of Christmas.
We're leaving it open-ended.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's really good. That's the challenge.
What are you celebrating? Please.
Yeah.
And to watch other people celebrating, look, just the pure joy of it. Well, that I think without, yes, all the other stuff can be there, but it's not on the table where everyone can poke at it.
The hopes and fears of all the years were met in the tonight. That's the hymn. That's the line. And to
on
me,
that bombshell.
That's the hope. But I love what you said. And the other thing, I'm gonna try a few experiments, loving relational experiments with our neighbors, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Please, and
we will see what works or what doesn't, and I probably have a deeper conversation with them about all of this, because I think we've got a good enough relationship that we could do that, and
it would probably be surprising, as this conversation was, where that one would go to.
Exactly, I'd be really
always are. But hey, as we like to say around here, this is how to have a conversation with someone you really shouldn't be able to have a conversation with lessons.
And about things that you're nervous about talking about too. So
sure. Right. Randy, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, Alan, agreed. Very good. Looking forward to it. I hope you have a good end of the year. Although I think we've got at least one more conversation.
At least one more.
Yep. So, but
Until then.
It's been a good year. Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody.
See you next time.